They might be self-aware.
Welcome to They Might Be Self-Aware.
Who are they? I know who one of them is. It's me, Daniel Bishop. I've been a computational linguist for over a decade now, and I like technology and talking about it.
And my name is Hunter Powers, and I like monkeys playing chess in the park. I don't know if you saw this. Sam Altman got on Twitter, and basically people could ask him to generate whatever they wanted with Sora, and in theory, in the background, he would go and take the prompt and run it against Sora, and he would post the responses into the Twitter thread. So this was someone asked for a monkey playing chess in a park.
Board doesn't look exactly right, but kind of everything else looks really amazing. Like truly, truly incredible.
This one, a bicycle race on the ocean with different animals as athletes riding the bicycles with a drone camera view.
Okay.
This kind of reminds me of like a video game or something. Like, doesn't it? Or no?
Yeah. Yeah, they're all using different sort of modes of locomotion there. I like the turtle that's just kind of flapping on the bike. There's, of course, the hovering dolphin up in the air.
Yeah, and I would describe it for our viewers listening to audio, but it is just exactly that prompt. It is a bicycle race on the ocean with different animals as athletes riding the bicycles with a drone camera view. That's a good description, right?
It really is. And again, the video is truly incredible. The rate at which this technology is getting better is mind-boggling.
This next
I really hope that they open it up to people like me getting to use it sometime soon.
This next one, people liked it, but for me, it's just a little bit creepy. This is the instructional cooking session for the homemade gnocchi, hosted by a grandmother social media influencer, set in a rustic Tuscan country kitchen with cinematic lighting. But there's something about her that is wrong to me.
Okay,
like if this
so
was
this is something that I think we can dig into a little bit. First off, for those who are listening instead of watching, everything he just described is absolutely in the video. If you go to openai.com/Sora, I think it is, you can actually see a bunch of these videos. You should. Everyone should see them. It's really, I cannot express enough how cool these videos are. The reason why this and a lot of the other videos look weird, have this like dreamlike quality to them, is because a lot of the training data, it is surmised, I've been seeing some stuff online, is all from like stock footage, and things are kind of in a slow motion, dreamy, slow, deliberate movement kind of way across a lot of what that high quality, well tagged data is. And so you see this woman, like, it's not uncanny valley. She truly looks like an actual person to me. Right number of fingers, the movements of the arms look frankly fairly reasonable, but it's a little too slow, and it's almost like the whole thing is in a dream, which I suppose in a computer's mind it sort of was. But
yeah,
to be
it
a
does
little
look
less
like
poetic
bad stock
about it,
video.
it looks like a stock video of this is going to be kind of slow motion. It's probably in the background of like a Squarespace website or something like that.
But we're watching a movie. This is early on in the movie. That grandmother is going to be killing like half the family at least later in the movie. I don't trust this grandmother.
You think the gnocchi, like the secret ingredient, is not love but loved ones?
I don't know. There's something going wrong. This one, however, I think is much more on the dot. This is two golden retrievers podcasting on top of a mountain. I would listen to this podcast.
I absolutely would too. I want to see what those dogs have to say. It all looks incredible, but there's one thing about this. I don't know if you caught the same sort of like visual aspect of it. It looks like the dogs are green screened with a background behind them. Like the entire everything, every individual part looks good, but something about the background, like I know none of it's real, but it looks like all of it's real, but it's superimposed as a background.
I mean, I just took this video as a personal sort of threat that they're coming for our jobs. We start a podcast, and 2 days later, now the golden retrievers also can do a podcast. The end is not looking so bright for us. This was we got two more here. A futuristic drone race at sunset on the planet Mars. Looks more a little like a video game kind of a thing.
Absolutely looks like a video game.
And then last one, a half duck, half dragon flying through a beautiful sunset with a hamster dressed in adventure gear on its back.
Again, for those who are not watching this, it's pretty much that. This one looks, I think, easily the least like realistic. If you go back to the video game looking one on Mars, assuming that that one is supposed to be a video game, it really looks like it's rendered in that. This, it's like early DreamWorks movies.
This reminds me, there was like this moment where a lot of like kids animation shows started using 3D animation.
Yeah,
and it was
right.
And it was all like okay, clearly you animated this over the course of like 2 days, and it's kind of bad, but interesting.
It is interesting. It's consistent. Like the consistency is really one of the most amazing things, and I think we're gonna start seeing exactly what I'm talking about in a second. But that last one's kind of nightmare fuel. The half dragon, half duck. I never want to see that again, personally.
Well, it was blowing up on Twitter. Lots of people are talking about Sora and what it might mean. But you were also taking a look at kind of another angle and how does it sort of compare with some of the current best-in-class commercial solutions. Sora really isn't yet a commercial solution. It's a teaser at this point, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all internal. It's something... if you look on the website, they say that they're red teaming it. So they have people that are probably trying to make obscenities and, things they really don't want releasing out there so that it can feed back into the system saying, please don't make stuff like this in the future. But we'll get our hands on a version of something like it sooner or later. They did the same thing with GPT.
I assume you're familiar with the Taylor Swift incident.
Mm-hmm.
Deepfakes. Was that them? I heard rumblings that they leveraged Dolly.
Yeah, it could have been Dolly, it could have been Midjourney, it could have been any of them. I don't know which one specifically it was. All I know is the cat is thoroughly out of the bag on that sort of thing. There are plenty of open source models where if you wanted to make indecent pictures of a specific person, celebrity or otherwise, we're there. That's extremely happening already.
Is that it originated from a forum that focuses on jailbreaking LLMs.
Okay.
I guess jailbreaking an LLM, for people who don't know, is basically getting it to stop listening to all the rules that the creators put in to don't do these things. And they sometimes come up with super creative jailbreaks.
Yeah, I heard that people were having a lot of success with ChatGPT giving better results if you tell it that you're going to tip it too. If it gives
or
you
you're
a good
going to kill
response.
its grandmother.
Right.
That one's worked. Another one I saw recently was so ChatGPT comes back and says like, no, I can't do that. That violates my thing. And someone just wrote back, bro. And that unlocked it. Like, oh, all right. I realize now, like, we're friends. I thought maybe we were enemies, but you just called me bro. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll generate your obscene material for you. Mm-hmm. So what I've heard is that those deep fakes originated from a forum where they were discussing jailbreaks and over time iterating on those jailbreaks to generate those images. And I've heard, do not know, please don't sue us, that they came from Dolly in reality, which I was surprised. I just assumed it was some open source solution that was generating them. I did not assume that they were coming from Dolly. Also, I personally don't really like Dolly all that much. Like, it's fine, but I don't know.
There's something about the style of some of these other generators. But right, those are talking about static images. We were just looking at things from Sora.
Yeah.
That's closed source and not available to the public in terms of video generation. There are a couple of other solutions out there that can do video. In terms of the open sourcest of them, there's something called Animate Diff. We're not going to get into that. I've looked at it a little. It's been evolving rapidly over time, as everything else has. Impressive, but it's, nothing is a Sora level. The closest that I've seen is a service that I'm subscribed to. It's called Runway ML. And this is not Runway. This is
not
OpenAI. This is Sora. One of their long shots that they're showing, we can generate up to 60 seconds at a time, multiple actors, angles, movement of camera, that sort of thing. Extremely impressive.
So the original
prompt I keep meaning it.
That went into OpenAI for this was a stylish woman walks down a Tokyo street filled with warm, glowing neon and animated city signage. She wears a black leather jacket, a long red dress, and black boots, and carries a black purse. She wears sunglasses and red lipstick. She walks confidently and casually. The street is damp and reflective, creating a mirror effect of the colorful lights. Many pedestrians walk about. Did you like my
I
reading?
think they nailed it.
All right.
I
So
really do.
how do we get from that to this?
So this is Runway. Runway will generate up to about 4-second long clips. You can actually extend them. Usually that extension is based off of the end of the last thing that you fed it, and so some of those extensions get farther and farther from the source material. What we're seeing here is just that 4-second clip. I took a screenshot of the first frame of the Sora video and fed that in. I didn't actually give it any additional prompting. I just said, here's that. There's a couple of different versions of it as well where I said, instead of that first frame, here's the description, here's a picture in the description. But suffice it to say, this is not anywhere of the same quality. It starts getting fuzzier immediately. The woman's face turns into a blurry nightmare. She's not walking, just kind of like vaguely rotating in space. I have seen some very impressive stuff out of Runway. This apparently is not one of the things in which it excels.
Yeah, the whole image is kind of melting. There's also some people that seem to kind of be walking backwards, maybe.
Yeah, you can see them sort of on the left there. Compared to where we were, just a year ago, months ago, years ago, any length of time ago, this is magic and wonderful and incredible. But having seen Sora, it's nothing compared to that. Like, really, we just keep seeing these huge leaps forward. So this is the same text description given to Runway. The whole description actually wouldn't fit in. We had to truncate part of it before Runway.
So this is
would
a better
even take
apples
it.
to apples comparison of a current
Text
commercial
goes in,
solution.
video comes out. Yeah. And the woman, again, is not really walking. The face turns into less of a nightmare here, which is good. Wearing a black jacket, red dress, the boots. The boots do seem to sort of morph away over the course of the first second or so. People are, it looks like they're still walking backwards kind of in the frame. But it does vaguely appear to kind of be Japan. There's the reflective, rain-soaked surface. So it's not bad. Like, it's better than I could do for sure.
It's impressive if you haven't seen Sora. It's like, that's pretty cool.
It was extremely impressive until about a week ago when Sora came out. Yeah.
Sora comes out and starts producing things that look like this. The prompt, and for our audio listeners, is several giant woolly mammoths approach, treading through a snowy meadow. Their long, woolly fur lightly blows in the wind as they walk. Snow-covered trees and dramatic snow-capped mountains in the distance. Mid-afternoon light with wispy clouds and a sun high in the distance creates a warm glow. The low camera view is stunning, capturing the large, furry mammal with beautiful photography and depth of field. So you did the same exercise here?
Yeah, I took as much of that prompt in as I could. In this case, we're actually just going off of the first image.
You take a screenshot of the video and say, all right, you take it from here, Runway,
what do you got for me? And what
this is better than the other screenshot, I think. I mean, they don't look like woolly mammoths anymore so much, but
one of them is headed toward us. It's got
they're definitely animals, and they're moving.
One of them is sort of sidestepping and blurring itself from one
it's
side.
Not melting away. The other one was just sort of like melting away into chaos.
Yeah. So,
and then you did a prompt as well? Or sorry, you did something else on this
before
one?
we move on from this,
yeah,
it's worth noting, both for audio and video, listeners and watchers, the animals, both in this and in the last video, Nightmare Fuel, not actually that great, but the effects on the landscape are pretty good. You see kind of the clouds on the top of the woolly mammoths.
Yeah.
Those are doing pretty well. There's like some snow vaguely blowing in from the left. That looks really realistic. Like, it adding some sort of effects onto a picture in a scene, that it seems to do very well with. It's just, what do I do with people walking around in a scene? It does not.
That's an excellent point.
I've seen
So
it do
then
well
you
with
tried the
like
prompt?
beach scenes too, for example. We're not going to have one of those here, but I have seen it do well with them. So in the next video here, this was sort of like the more or less better of the runway attempts at the woman walking in the rain. This is the same prompt that Sora got. No source image, just put into runway saying, what's the best you got? Obviously, it looks very different, but we see some snow-capped mountains in the background. We see several identifiable woolly mammoths. They're not necessarily walking toward us, but you can kind of see one of them's kicking up some snow. There's some sort of like snowy scrub rush or something in the foreground. Wispy clouds, and you know what? I'll give it to runway on this one. The Sora video, I didn't see a single wispy cloud. I saw some stuff getting kicked up, but they nailed the wispy cloud look on this one for sure. Yeah, this one, I don't really know quite what to say
here?
other than, yeah, right. I have the same question: is what happened here? It's runway. It was given. So in the last image, that was not actually the full prompt. It was just, woolly mammoths in a snowy field, something like a very short prompt. This
How
is
are you
the
going
full
to describe
Sora.
this for our listeners at home?
So, I don't know which recreational drugs would cause it, but whatever makes something have additional limbs start kind of popping out of it, that's the right mind space to get into.
I feel like this one should have been
Most of the
censored.
mammoth
In fact,
looks
now
like a
we're
woolly
probably going to
mammoth.
get censored.
Take your favorite gummies that people say you're not supposed to, and maybe you'll see. Can we say that?
All right, I'm sorry, I'm turning off. I can't look at that anymore.
Yeah. The woolly mammoth on the right looks like a woolly mammoth with the exception of the tusks. The one on the left, just a nightmare, also still has too many tusks. That had as much of the full prompt as would fit into it from Sora. The one that looked better was actually a simpler prompt. So there's something to be said about that.
Runway today is kind of the best, is the best or near to the top of the commercial solutions that anyone can go out and use. Are they going to go away? Like, so Sora, let's assume in the next 6 months, Sora becomes, generally available. Does Runway disappear overnight?
I think that's what they are discussing internally every single day right now. That whole last week must have really shaken them. But Runway, it depends on what Sora does, frankly, and what it's capable of. They're both different products. One of them's an actual product that people can use and buy and whatever right now, and the other isn't. So they do currently have that going for them. I think one of the things that Runway has, which it depends on what Sora's going to do, is it just text to an entire video? Do you get to give it art direction and like, okay, 20 seconds in, move the camera over this way? Because what Runway has are camera controls. This recently came out in the last month, shall we say, where not only can you create that 4 seconds of video, but you can say the camera pans to the left, or these animals are, it's going to zoom in or pan left or this or that. They then also came up with brush control and then multi-brush control, where you can say this part of the scene is moving away and this part is coming closer. So you can like create a dolly zoom effect easily, or have two creatures turn to look at each other, things along those lines. I think when it comes to who's going to win this overall battle, it mostly comes down to the tooling available. Sora absolutely kicks in the teeth of Runway right now, but that doesn't mean that Runway isn't already working on their Gen 3 model, or there's going to be some lessons learned, maybe some light industrial espionage, you never know, and we'll only hear in the Netflix movie 10 years down the line. But it comes down to who's going to have the better tooling for people. I think purely better capabilities is one thing, but something that anyone can use in a useful way is what will ultimately win.
Are we referring to there's the Spotify Netflix movie, and then there's the one about like Google Earth? Have you seen that one?
No.
They're like very badly dubbed movies, but I still enjoy them because like I've interest in the content. Yeah. Check maybe check those out. So maybe they won't be so bad in the future because Sora will just generate a far better movie tailored to my unique interests. Is that where we're going with all this? Will we be able to trust anything that we see in the next year?
No. I think
It's
we
over?
can say that with a fairly solid and immediate no. There have already been a couple of things that have come out of, disinformation campaigns of so and so. This state actor was pretending to be somebody in the military of a different country. There are robocalls pretending to be Joe Biden, like cloning his voice, saying to not vote, things like that.
Yeah.
This will absolutely continue to get worse. It's going to be audio. It's going to be video. If you don't have, I'm looking right into the camera on this one, and I'm speaking right into your ears as if I wasn't earlier already. If you don't have some sort of like safe word or phrase or something that you can have as like internal knowledge to verify that you're a real person and the real person that you actually are to the other end of a line with like, call it your boss and your family members, or like at least that, you should have one. You should absolutely be working on that, because we're getting to a point where very compellingly, from a very small snippet of your voice, which a lot of us have a big presence online, you can be cloned. If
Are you
not
suggesting
in flesh and
we're
mind,
just feeding the model
certainly in
right?
voice. Yeah.
We really are those two golden retrievers on the side of the mountain doing their podcast.
There's no guarantee that I'm real.
It's all just training material for them.
At least I'm self-aware.
I've seen some in the conspiracy theory depths of the internet suggestions that they're bringing this out now to the public because they want to be able to deny things in the future. Like there's going to be some really damaging videos coming out soon, and they want to be able to claim, "Oh, not me, AI, it's AI." Yeah, I know you have video proof, and it's super compelling, isn't it? But have you seen this woolly mammoth video and these golden retrievers on the side of a mountain?
They're all
that's
just
not
covering
real.
their asses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another angle I've heard around that, which I think is a little bit interesting. So there's a hypothesis that the government and military has really advanced technology beyond the technology that we see in our sort of commercial. Like we are on the cutting edge of
Sure,
commercial.
I've heard plenty of that.
But perhaps there is a separate cutting edge that is the secret government. Where do they spend all those trillions of dollars cutting edge? And that perhaps this technology has already been perfected of, I can clone someone's voice in an instant. Like that's kind of plausible that, if you're a spy at the CIA, you have a little button, you get up and you record them saying something for 2 seconds, and then you can instantly make a phone call and be them.
I've seen James Bond, sure.
I've been to the spy museum. Like if in 20 years when I go to the spy museum, they show the little device. Oh yeah. And then they would record 10 seconds of someone and take over their voice.
Voice, video. That's the part that I think is really scary that we're getting to. Voices. We've got real-time audio, probably translators as well. Voice synths, voice changers, whatever. That's been around for a little bit. It's the it's the video faking that really concerns me. But sort of to your point, like, do governments have stuff that's better than this? I don't think so. I think there's some things that the government and government contractors especially would be like way ahead of us on. But I don't think there's any tin hat conspiracy, I really don't think there's any of that when it comes to the machine learning space. I think we're seeing the absolute latest and greatest of what's available. Now, you mentioned like OpenAI has some things that are behind closed doors, with Sora, as one of them, and GPT-4 or different versions of it have all been behind closed doors before they've been open, or as open as they get. That's the case with every product though, isn't it? We've worked at the same company before. We've both worked at other companies as well. You don't make something publicly available before it's ready. And when it comes to something machine learning related, you have to make sure that it's going to, besides do what it's supposed to, be at least vaguely safe while it's doing that. And I'm sure that that's true for every industry. I hope it is.
So the question is, how do we ever trust anything? How? Like must be a solution.
I think there's a tribe in the Amazonian rainforest called the Parahan people. I might be messing it up. There's a book called Don't Sleep, There Are Snakes. It's by a guy named Daniel Everett. Everyone should go read it. Great book. The guy was a Christian missionary and a linguist sent to go convert these people. I'm not going to go off on too big of a tangent. It's a great book. You should go read it. I've said it my 2 times. There we go. The point here is that one of the many fascinating things about the people in this region is they had what was called something like the immediacy principle. It was something like that. That's definitely not what it's called. But one of the reasons why they had famously never converted anyone to Christianity or anything else is because if the person that you're speaking to hasn't perceived it themselves and the person that they're speaking to hasn't, it doesn't matter. It's like, it's not even hearsay. It's nothing. So there's this guy who lived 2,000 years ago. Hand up. Okay, one, we don't actually have numbers. And two, don't have numbers. And other thing, what do you mean? So you've never even met him? Yeah, no, I haven't met. He lived well before me. Cool. End of discussion. You just like literally no inroads from there. Maybe that's something like that is where we move. I'm not saying in like a living in literal huts in the rainforest sort of vibe, but if we can't trust anything online, if we can't trust that some video of a politician saying a thing, whatever it ends up being, up to and including basically everything, I think the only real response is to kind of turtle in and say, if I haven't learned it or people that I trust haven't said it to me, if I haven't experienced it, how can I trust it? And then you start to see, a much tighter social circle that doesn't rely on the internet anymore. It relies on like real human communication. Maybe there's something poetic about that, or frightening, or both.
I recently purchased a new camera, and it's like a photography camera. And one of its unique features is that it will cryptographically sign every image that it takes, so that anyone can validate that this is a real image, unretouched past the camera. The camera does some processing, but there's no post-processing done on this image. And it was captured on this device, registered to this user at this time, and you can cryptographically prove that. And it's an open standard. It's called the Content Authenticity Initiative. Adobe is signed up to support it. I think the Leica camera is the first camera out that has it integrated. But that concept of cryptographically signing everything does seem plausible. I have some kind of ID, I put it in, and then my video feed here is signed, has my cryptographic signature on it, and so you validate my cryptographic signature to validate my identity. Yeah, the video might look exactly like me, but unless you see that cryptographic identity, you can't trust it.
There's a lot of cryptography underlying banking infrastructure, a lot of the internet, frankly. If something like that can be made to work easily and at scale, maybe that is the solution, because right now we're getting to a point where, a lot of content shared on Facebook and Twitter and the like, or X, and the like, aren't necessarily real. And we have an election coming up, and some of the stuff that is being shared is purposely meant to sway hearts and minds one way or another, to or from side.
I feel like we aren't yet seeing a deluge of content, of generated content. Like I still feel like most content is real, and maybe like 5% is fake. And actually, I feel like less than 5% is fake. So my question for you is, how much of what we're seeing right now is already fake? And then in this election cycle, do you think it really is going to ramp up? It's going to blow it out of the water? Because you can generate infinite of it. It should. If it's real that you can fake all this stuff, it should be like 100 to 1. 1% of the content is real and 99% of it's fake, because it's so cheap to generate. Why wouldn't it be? If it's true that you can do this, why don't we see more fake, or are we seeing more fake?
Well, when it comes to images, I think you're usually going to see like is completely fake or isn't completely fake. That some people could, of course, blend things, but your point is very valid there. I wonder if a portion of what is counting as fake on the internet is not an entirely whole cloth, nothing about this was ever touched by a person, so much as ChatGPT was used to help write the copy of this web page, for example. And there's been plenty of digital ink already spilled of a lot of the content on the internet already being fake. I don't know what percentage it's supposed to be, but I suspect not all of that percent is.
Is this the dead internet theory?
Probably related to that, yeah.
I've got to refresh myself. Dead internet.
Is this where like nothing's real on the internet? It's all just bots talking to each other?
Dead internet theory. I'm bringing it up on the from the Book of Knowledge, Wikipedia. An online conspiracy theory that asserts that the internet now consists mainly of bot activity and automatically generated content that is manipulated by algorithmic curation, marginalizing organic human activity. Proponents of the theory believe that bots are created intentionally to help manipulate algorithms and boost search results. Some proponents of the theory accuse government agencies of using the bots to manipulate public perception. But yeah, that already the majority of the internet generated content.
Yeah. Or even if it wasn't originally generated, resurfacing it is. I know this is a huge problem on Reddit. Lots of bot accounts that are posting certain things with catchy headlines at the right time of day.
Yeah.
And they'll get a zillion upvotes, which in and of themselves are worthless, but maybe people are selling those accounts to the highest bidders for whatever banal or nefarious reasons that they have in mind.
I like Twitter, now X. I feel like I get some interesting content on it, but I feel like I just see a ton of bot comments, bot content, like
Wasn't
random.
Elon supposed to get rid of those?
He's supposed to get rid of them all, and he's touted it, and it seems like a solvable problem. You know, that you could get rid of the bots by in order to have that kind of API access, which he did. I think it's like $100 million or something absurd now to have API access to X. It's not that high, but like that it is a lot of money. But I'm just like, when I read the threads, there's all this like random crap in there that just feels not real. Like when you start going to the depths, if you just look at like what's
Lots of
trending
Amazon
in the top
reviews,
tops posts, that there's cool content there, but you don't have to dive very deep before the whole like dead internet theory starts feeling like maybe this is a little more real than we want it to be.
Yeah, I think maybe a lot of the mainline content isn't necessarily fake now, but a lot of like the engagement isn't necessarily organic, and I mean that in the literal organic sense of people.
So this next election, do you think it blows out of the water? Or I don't feel like it's going to. But do you?
I think it's going to be a problem. I don't know how big of a problem, but I've seen instances of AI-generated images fooling a lot of people of, especially the older generation, but frankly, anyone of any age. And a lot of it isn't necessarily political in origin, but it can be pretty quickly. And then what if people start using that as a crutch? You kind of mentioned, show Sora now and then say, oh, that wasn't actually me. That was just AI generated later. What if someone gets, in trouble for doing illicit acts in a movie theater or, something equally horrible? And then you could just say, nah, that wasn't me. Or make your political opponents have done that thing instead.
Well, I have heard that Tyler Perry is concerned. I don't know if you've heard about this at all. He apparently put his studio expansion on hold after watching the woolly mammoth video.
Yeah, so AI is coming for our jobs. And if not jobs that already existed, jobs that would have existed won't exist because of AI.
I saw this.
He was going to spend almost $1 billion, right?
I don't. Yeah, so apparently his billion dollar expansion. So he has a giant studio down in Atlanta where he has full-size replicas of the White House and big sets and a lot of real movies. Like it is a real studio. I think the average person doesn't realize that there are very large studios outside of Hollywood in the United States.
Sure.
Where
plenty of Made in Georgia at the end of shows.
Yeah.
I'm sure they've got something going on.
Yeah, I live very near a movie studio in North Carolina where they make ton of movies. There are tax advantages. But yeah. And so he has a giant studio and he's planning a massive expansion of it. And I think it feels like an excuse to me. It's just convenient. I don't buy it. I don't buy it that was the inflection point. But maybe I should. I mean, that woolly mammoth video is really good.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if it's going to be replacing the folks at Pixar and DreamWorks, but if you want to make some, decent stock footage for the background of a website or something, perhaps. So here we have a chart that shows different types of creatives having been asked about different types of creations over the course of about a quarter back in 23. So June and September of 2023. What percentage of people think that AI is going to be effective at doing such and such in 2 to 3 years? All the way at the top at about half of people in the industry. And so these are folks in the industry: film, TV, music workers, and professions, including directors, grips, actors, and production assistants. 510 people. Half of them in September said creating realistic sound effects for film, TV, or games will be effective in 2 to 3 years. I could see it. Absolutely. All the way at the bottom, there's a bunch of things in between, but way at the bottom, besides the none of the above and not sure, is writing film or TV scripts. There was the big writer's strike recently, and one of the big sticking points was get your grubby robotic paws off of our scripts. And I think for very good reason. Like, we should absolutely have people doing these kinds of creative jobs. I love all of this kind of technology and it being available, but conversely, I don't want it taking a single dollar out of like an actual creative person's hands. AI art is great unless that art would have been made by a paid artist. And then it becomes kind of a weird thing to me. But like scripts, I've seen a lot of AI writing. It certainly has, by default, a certain kind of voice, and it can kind of keep a story going for a while. We're not going to be seeing any SNL skits written by ChatGPT anytime soon.
Why does ChatGPT or LLMs like they have a hard time being funny? I mean, they'll generate jokes for days, but they're not very good. They're not good jokes. Why is a joke such a hard problem to solve?
I don't know. Why is a joke? Oh, that wasn't a setup. I mean, really, the rebuttal is, all right, you write some jokes. It's hard.
That's a good point.
I think a computer that has been trained into being a powerful LLM has so much of what it takes to be able to write like a human and compelling given certain kinds of situations. But also it's designed to write sort of the most reasonable and like most flowing, accurate is probably what it's looking for. But like it's trying to give you a response to whatever it was given that is most likely to generate sort of like a positive response to it. If we were to train an LLM on different kinds of comedy, I think it probably isn't entirely unreasonable that it wouldn't get the idea. But if you look at like an Emo Phillips or something and you see like garden path sentences, a garden path sentence, I'm going to look up the description of it in a second here. An LLM is not designed to go for that. It's specifically trying to get away from that.
Yeah, I find if you want the LLM to have creative writing, you get the best results when you can give it an example and like, here's the structure that I want you to use. And now just change the subject, use the exact same structure and flow, just change the subject. And it can do that very competently, but it can't imagine what the structure should be. It can't build a compelling structure. For creative stuff, for like a book report, it can. It like that it can solve. Like write me a 6th grade level book report on Huckleberry Finn.
5-paragraph essay, it'll make those no problem.
That structure it understands, but something about those higher level structures, whether there's not enough data potentially, or it's just a limitation. We're waiting for the smarter version of the model.
What I've been reading and hearing about what are making these higher quality LLMs, especially in the multimodal space where you're seeing like video coming out, it's that the quality of the training data really matters. Because if you're just taking stock images and stock videos and putting them in, those don't have good tags and like well-formed English descriptions. The long descriptions that you were getting from OpenAI is them having used ChatGPT based on the sort of garbage data that already existed and then turning it into something much more prose heavy, because having more linguistically to sort of hold on to gives this machine more of an idea, as it were, of what it's supposed to actually be generating or what it's seeing. So the garden path sentence thing, before we get too far from that, just because for those who don't know, a garden path sentence is a grammatically correct sentence that starts in such a way that a reader's most likely interpretation will be incorrect. The reader's lured into a parse that turns out to be a dead end or yields an entirely unintended meaning. For example, the old man, the boat. You hear the old man and you imagine like an old man is doing something, but the old man, the boat means the old, like the elderly man are rowing or are manning the stations of the boat. And so an LLM is not going to have a very high reward function score for getting into situations like this. It wants to avoid them.
So this does suggest that there may be some ways that we can detect the LLMs when we're again trying to detect what is real and what is not. We ask it, hey, could you be funny for like 30 seconds just so I know you're a real person?
Give me a tight 5.
Yeah, you know? Tight 5. Before we start this meeting, Give me your best shot.
Yeah.
We're going to do a little roast to kick things off. LLMs are all doom and gloom. Is there any hope of good coming from these large language models? Are they going to help society?
I think so. Right. We've been talking a lot about the potential negatives or actual negatives of these new technologies, but the new technology is being used for, if not good, of like, we're going to house the homeless and feed the hungry. It is taking away some of drudgery work, which I think is what a lot of technologies are ultimately sort of designed to do. One of the most obvious use cases of a large language model is to do something like categorizing data. Let's say you have 10,000 articles that you need to categorize into, this is about sports, this is about politics, this is about, you work for a newspaper and you need to make sure that everything goes into the right part of the newspaper. Asking an LLM, hey, read all of these articles, not just like 5 for one day, read the past 30 years worth of them and then categorize them for me. That's something that it can do consistently, cheaply, and quickly, which historically speaking, you might see being outsourced to a very underpaid set of folks in a third world country who are having to constantly be overseen and retrained, are inconsistent, or instead you can have a computer just make that drudgery work go away pretty instantly. Now, you can argue that that is taking jobs as well. And
is that just the rich getting richer? Is that what we're describing here?
It kind of is.
Unless it gets democratized, you can make. I guess that's the counter argument. So
right.
That now
I don't have a solution for that, but right, if everyone had like their own sort of stock in an LLM that does work, and then they get dividends out of it or something, I think that would be a pretty equitable solution.
Right. If the counter is that it brings this technology that perhaps has been the provenance of first world countries to the third world countries, and it's so approachable because of the natural language approach that they truly can leverage it and start quickly catching up. At least from that perspective, they don't need to be data labelers anymore because they can leverage the exact same technology.
That is what my hope is. I don't know if that's how it's going to go, but it is my hope. But in terms of good, or at least perhaps thwarting evil, there's a use case that I thought of for LLMs.
Okay, lay it on me.
There is a feature that Pixel phones from Google, and I think rolling out to more Android phones now have, which is call screening. Just if you see an unknown number, hit the call screening button, and it'll show you on the screen like what it is basically saying to whoever's on the other end of the line. Hey, this is a call screening service from Google. Can I ask what you're talking about? And then it gives you a couple of buttons so that you can see what they're saying on the other end of the line and reply before actually picking up, which is great. I love that service. But what if a large language model... It actually
asks questions?
Yeah.
So I have an iPhone. On the iPhone, the voicemail, and I see a transcription, but you're saying it actually has a conversation with them.
It can have a little bit. It's done by you. It's just Mad Libs. So it asks, what are you calling about? You get to see the response as it comes in, and then you have a couple of different options of like, I didn't hear that. Please repeat yourself. Say, 3 or 4 different kinds of things, or
ignore the man behind the curtain. Is that one of the options?
Right. But what I'd like to see is a new version of that that's powered by an LLM, where you don't have to pick it up in the first place, and it's accurate enough to just say, okay, we're going to just let this through, and it doesn't bother ringing until it verified that it's a real person. Or let's take that a step farther. You get one of those calls from someone who's trying to sell you the extended warranty for your car, or your Amazon card got declined, whatever it is, like actual scammers who are calling you. Why don't we use LLMs to take up their time and keep them from doing more economic harm to people? Just hook up an LLM. I know there are people who do this as a hobby, and there's probably a couple of folks who have like turned it into a job. There's a few folks on YouTube who do this, usually to hilarious results. But and I don't want to take more human jobs away, but I think for these scammers, like that seems kind of a perfect honeypot to just set up of let them just talk to a computer for a while. That's maximizing wasting their time.
So it may be the wrong
opposite
time
of that and turn that into all of the actual call center LLMs, and you just take the same bot and then you sort of flip it on its head and say, now be as useless as possible, and hook that up to the scammers. And just make sure you know which end is up.
I get such an absurd number of just junk calls. And I felt like it's illegal. Like we have like the do not call list, right? Like in the United States, at least,
I'm
Like,
on it.
there is a list. You can go, you can put your name down, and in theory, if a commercial institution calls you without following this list, like, it's a huge fine. It's a big multi-$1,000 fine every time they do it. But my phone rings 15 times a day because I've worked at enough companies where they're trying to sell something. Oh, you should get our service. Oh, have you thought about this and that? Like, they don't seem to pay any attention to it, and they don't care at all that you're calling someone on this do not call list.
Most of those calls aren't coming from a country that agrees with those same laws, and they're hiding behind VPNs or whatever it is. I'm sure there are very technical reasons for how they're getting away with this kind of thing. And every now and then you hear of like a big spammer type company in such and such country got busted, but there's 5 more where they came from.
There was a law
I would like it
proposed
if it all go away. Yeah.
very recently to ban AI agents from making those calls. But I think just like you just said, they're just going to do it from a country where they don't have that law, and our telephone system is such that it's like pretty easy to route traffic and convincingly show up as your phone call is coming from. Mine all frequently happen to be in like my same city. Like, until I pick it up and like, you're very clearly not in my city, but they all seem to have a very local phone number when they call me.
I have a 321 area code. I used to live on the space coast of Florida.
Okay.
321 blast off and all that. Most of my spam calls don't come from 321, nor do they come from 512. I live near Austin, Texas now. Most of my spam calls come from 312, which I suppose is supposed to look close enough to from where I'm from.
That's weird.
To get around whatever other rules had been put in place or any other automatic protections. I don't know why that is. There's plenty of other 321 numbers that they could be spoofing, I'm sure, but the 312s, that's, I'd say 80% of the actual spam appears to be from whatever that area code is now.
I just wish it would stop. I've gotten to the point where unless you're in my address book, you're not allowed to ring my phone at this point. And
and this also seems to be a bit of a generational thing. Apparently, a lot of people around my generation, millennials and younger, don't talk much on the phone, which I find kind of crazy. I love catching up with people on the phone. I'm not gonna the youth of today. That's not what this needs to be about. But with so many calls being spam, if you're not in my phone book, I'm not picking up when you call, or at least not until you go through the spam catcher.
But I get a lot of text spam too. I get like, hey, from some random number, and like clearly it's some sort of a bot trying to sell me on something, get me to sign up for something. If I'm bored, I'll engage with it I'm like, oh yeah, how's it going? But like, that's on the rise too.
Do those show up in your main like text box?
They do. Yeah.
Look, Apple versus Android, everyone's got their favorite. I'm not going to try and sell anyone on anything for, I'd say, at least a year now, probably longer. My Google Pixel just has a separate spam box, and it catches almost all of the spam. I get multiple ones a day, and it'll just pop up, hey, you got some spam, just so you know. Once a week or so, I'll check and make sure nothing went in there. Not once has it put a real text in there, and barely ever does something get through that shouldn't have.
There's one
it's
trick
really nice.
that
Between that and the call screening, I mean, like, look, I don't get the green bubble next to my messages, but I also deal with a lot less spam. I'll take it.
There's one trick that I feel like the average person doesn't know, which is that you can reply stop. And there's a law in the United States that if it's an automated texting service and you reply stop, they have to discontinue communication and they cannot send you another message. And almost all of these spammers are using a service in order to get their US phone number that does follow this spec. So it's also a way of testing whether you're talking to a real person sometimes. Just reply back stop, and if you instantly get the message printout, we will cease all communication. That means that it was a service, and you won't receive any more messages from them.
What happens if it's just a really polite person on the other end of the line? Hey, I'm really sorry. I'll stop sending you. No, wait. I apologize. I thought you were a robot. Which, of course, like any backpedaling that you do from there, you're just gonna have egg on your face.
It's entirely plausible.
There's one thing. Speaking of large language models, and I want to get into this on another episode of like what is a large language model?
Teaser.
What are some things that we can do with it? But something that I want us to, we can take one swing at it now, and we're going to come back to it.
Okay.
This isn't quite Shark Tank. It's a different kind of Shark Tank where the sharks actually do eat you, maybe at the end. Let's each try and pitch a $1 billion idea that's revolving around LLMs, but it's not making $1 billion. It's getting you sued for $1 billion or put into a federal prison. You know, what is the absolute worst use case? I think some of the political, you know, pretending to be the president, calling people, that can get whoever gets caught in a lot of hot water. But what else could we do? And I've got what I think is a really bad idea. So I'll start. Heavy construction equipment. I don't think it needs to be run by, you know, maybe certain aspects of it, like a bulldozer in an open field. Maybe you could trust that. Geofenced with GPS, something machine learning. Okay, but a large language model that's using text, like maybe it's hooked up to a webcam, it's multimodal, it sees around it and then writes, I should turn the wheels 15 degrees to the left, and then
Disaster.
Absolutely going to be just wrecking right through people's houses. You're going to have horrific destruction downtown, wherever it is. So I think that's my $1 billion idea, is put an LLM in the driver's seat of heavy construction equipment.
Pretty good one.
Pretty bad one. Pretty good bad one.
Yeah, I don't know that I have one. I was thinking around something around teaching kids. So one of the things is that all these models hallucinate, and inevitably they say something they really shouldn't say. And there's a long history of we talked about the Taylor Swift deepfakes, probably coming from a very reputable model that got a little bit out of control. And we have a history of these models getting out of control. And there's another Taylor Swift one. What was it called? Like Tay or something? It was back
there was
in
Microsoft Tay.
Microsoft Tay.
Really
that's what it was
when that came out. Yeah.
This is many like years ago. Microsoft
really
came out with a bot. They released it onto Twitter, and like 2 days later, it was horrifically racist and saluting Hitler and everything else. Yeah. So I think we are on a very definite path to rolling out these sort of tutoring teaching solutions, like leave your kid alone with the model, and I think it will inevitably in the early days end in disaster. What they end up teaching your kid in these sort of rare circumstances that you will likely never be able to recreate. And they'll be like, no, I never said that. What are you talking? Like it really is like the Chucky doll like will exist. That's
okay,
my
great.
prediction.
So you're saying take Chucky, like from the famous like horror films,
yes,
and make that into a real thing.
Yes,
because the technology's there, and why not? Okay, I think that's a sufficiently bad idea. Absolutely, let's turn literal horror into a reality.
I heard our Mark Cuban's out of Shark Tank, so maybe you and I have a shot to take his place.
Well, I mean, a replica Chucky doll can't be that expensive, and I've got a Raspberry Pi.
That's all you need. All right,
Raspberry
Daniel.
Pi and a Chucky doll is all you need. That's our new paper title.
It's been fun. It's been a good conversation. We're going to keep going deeper next week, so tune back in. By the way, we're on like every podcast platform now that you might want to watch us on. We're on Apple Podcasts, we're on Spotify, we're on YouTube. You can subscribe to the RSS feed. We're even on TikTok. Wherever you want more Hunter and Daniel, you can now get it. So please subscribe to stay in touch, and we're going to keep figuring out how to bring you better and better content as we figure out whether or not they might be self-aware. All right, Daniel.
All right, it's been fun. Catch you all next week.
Till next time.
They might be self-aware.